If you ever feel like the harder you train, the less progress you see, don't worry, you're not alone. Studies show that over 60% of athletes experience some sort of overtraining in their career. And here's the kicker. Overtraining doesn't just stall your progress, it can set you back by months. If we haven't met before, I'm Lockie, a final year sport and exercise science student at Oxford Brookes University. I've had over 4 years of resistance training experience and even longer in the world of research for sport and exercise science. So I've had plenty of time to figure out why people are overtraining without realising and how to improve their training to make sure they don't overtrain again. Because overtraining is more common than you think. It's not just elite athletes that suffer, anyone who is pushing hard without proper recovery can fall into this trap. So the goal is balance. Train too little and you won't experience any progress, but train too hard, you risk burnout and even injuries. So in this video, we'll cover the key signs of overtraining, physical, mental and performance based, the science behind why overtraining derails progress, and actionable strategies to recover and prevent it from happening again. Whether you've just started training or you've been working out for years, these tips will help you avoid setbacks and optimize your performance. So first, let's clarify what actually is overtraining. So it occurs when training stress exceeds recovery capacity, and it's a fine line between pushing yourself to improve and pushing too far. So you'll know you've pushed too hard too often if the amount of recovery you're having cannot keep up with the high, consistent intensity of your training. But it's important to note there's something else called overreaching, and there are key differences between the two. So overreaching is a temporary state of fatigue with proper recovery can lead to performance gains, whilst overtraining is a chronic condition that takes weeks or months to resolve. And finally, why does overtraining actually happen? So overtraining is caused by excessive training volume or intensity, so you're either doing too many sets or reps within your sessions, or the weight you're using is too high, inadequate sleep or poor nutrition, so you're not getting that 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every night and you're having either not enough calories, not enough protein, or too much fat. And finally, life stress outside of the gym, like work and relationships, can have a massive impact on your training and cause you to overtrain without realizing. These factors cause hormonal imbalances and physiological stress that impacts the way your body can recover and perform. So you know what overtraining is and why it happens, but quite often there are many other things that cause overtraining to happen, or you don't notice the initial signs of it. So what are some main signs to show you might be overtraining? So the first one is a performance decline. So you're working harder, but seeing weaker lifts, slower runs, or less explosiveness. We then have persistent fatigue, where you're feeling tired all day even after a full night's sleep, and chronic fatigue often stems from hormonal imbalances, particularly elevated cortisol. Mood changes like irritability, anxiety, or lack of motivation to train can also be a sign of overtraining, as mental health and performance are very closely linked. You then have the more obvious physical symptoms like prolonged muscle soreness, frequent illnesses, and consistently elevated heart rate. And then finally, you have poor recovery. Sessions feel harder than they should and recovery times get longer. So if workouts that used to energize you now leave you drained, it's a major red flag. Cool, we understand why it happens and what are some signs of overtraining, but what is actually happening when you go into that overtraining threshold? So as we know, overtraining causes hormonal imbalances because chronic stress increases cortisol, which is a catabolic hormone, which means it is against growth of muscles, and suppresses testosterone, which is obviously the growth hormone. Both of these in combination impairs muscle growth and recovery, because you're not just having a suppression of the hormone that elicits muscle growth, you're also having a rise in the hormone that suppresses muscle growth. So it's bad enough just having one of them, but then having both is even worse. So the next one we have is nervous system fatigue, and this is often one that goes unnoticed. But what it really comes down to is your central nervous system becoming overtaxed, reducing your ability to generate force and recover effectively. So like I said, it's not necessarily something you will notice happening, but if you realized what your nervous system did and how it can impact your performance and recovery, you'll start to realize, oh my God, well, my central nervous system's clearly over fatigued because this is happening or this is happening. You then have glycogen depletion because without enough carbs, glycogen stores run low, leaving you fatigued and underpowered because the vast majority of carbs you consume get broken down and converted into glycogen stores, which is then used as energy. So if you are low on carbohydrates, you'll then be low on glycogen stores. And as a knock-on effect, you will be low on energy. And then finally, immune suppression. So overtraining weakens your immune system by reducing antibodies like immunoglobulin A, making you more susceptible to illness. That's why I mentioned previously that a sign of overtraining is that you're getting constantly ill, because by overtraining and training too hard too often, your immune system gets suppressed. But I know it all sounds doom and gloom and very bad, but don't worry, all of this can be fixed if you follow the right steps. So I'm going to give you 3 steps to fix your overtraining with some immediate fixes and some long-term progress. Then I'm also going to give you 4 prevention strategies to make sure you don't fall into that trap of overtraining again. So the first one is some immediate fixes. So you should be resting for 1 to 2 weeks or significantly reduce the intensity or volume of your training sessions if you feel like any of these overtraining symptoms might apply to you. And then another very similar method is a deload phase, which is reducing the intensity you're using for 1 to 2 weeks to help your body to fully recover. And then on top of that, allowing yourself to recover properly by including at least 7 to 9 hours of effective sleep will promote long-term recovery. Then we've got some long-term strategies. So we have periodization, which is planning your workouts in cycles and incorporating specific recovery sessions and weeks. And then tracking recovery, like using heart rate variability monitors like a Whoop or wellness journals. All of these things can help you track your progress and your journey to training hard again. And then finally, we have a focus on nutrition. So as always, you want a protein intake of at least 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. For carbohydrates, you want to replenish your glycogen stores with starchy foods and fruit and veg, like breads, rice, and anything else like that. And then you have hydration, so you should stay hydrated to support recovery and reduce inflammation. Right, cool, so you figured out how you can fix your overtraining mistakes, but how can you prevent them from happening again? Listening to your body is one of the most important things that you can do, because if your energy levels are all over the place or they're absolutely bombed, you need to adjust your training intensity. Training hard doesn't mean training absolutely crazy every single session. It means listening to what your energy levels are like, how your body is recovering from the last session, and then adapting your intensity based on that. Obviously, if you're consistently decreasing the intensity you're using, you will limit your progress, but then there's probably another problem at play there. But then building on from that, avoiding sudden increases in intensity will also save your gains. So if I was you, I would use the 10% rule. Don't increase the weight you're using for any exercise more than 10% every week. I found that's the method that works best for me to keep my intensity high whilst I'm implementing progressive overload without overtraining. Another very important thing is recovery days. This is something I've only recently realized how important they are. I now have 3 recovery days a week, meaning I can train really hard in the 4 sessions I'm using, but then properly relax and recover for the 3 sessions I'm not. So you need to take recovery as part of your program, not an afterthought. I know it's really tempting to think, I'm gonna try and train as many days as I can, but no, the rest days are part of your program. They shouldn't be like pushed to the side. If you're doing that, you need to have a massive rethink on if you're actually training hard enough. You would actually need to implement proper recovery sessions. And then a final one that I found to be really helpful in the last few months is tracking recovery metrics. Using trackers like Whoop or HRV monitors will help you to detect early signs of overtraining. A drop in HRV or a rise in resting heart rate shows it's time to take a step back, and your Whoop will tell you that. If you're interested in trying to Whoop out, click the link in the description. You get a free Whoop and 1 free month with absolutely no obligation to carry on. So what's the most important takeaway? Overtraining is completely avoidable if you balance your stress and recovery, because you need to remember that growth doesn't happen in the gym, it happens when you're recovering. So by listening to your body, managing your workload and prioritizing recovery, you'll be able to make sustainable gains without burning out. So to summarize, overtraining is a common issue that can sabotage your progress. Recognize the signs, address the causes, and implement recovery strategies. And by preventing overtraining, you'll stay consistent and reach your goals faster. So remember, training smarter is always better 10 times out of 10 than training harder. So have you ever experienced overtraining, and what helped you recover from that? Let me know your experiences and thoughts in the comments. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, make sure to smash the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more evidence-based fitness content. And if you're not sure whether you should be training with a high volume or high intensity, take a look at my most recent video. It breaks down the whole argument and shows you how to use both to optimize your gains. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks a lot, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.